attempt number 3 to
35.
to do podcast number 7. We'd like to talk about elephants in the room and deer and new backdrops, but we've already done that, so it's kind of getting boring.
Yeah.
We're moving on to the next topic, which
Did it
is
about 3 times.
Yeah, Dave's here and Joe's in Mississippi. We're
Yep.
having real technology issues, but we would like to talk about all things deer hunting related.
Absolutely, yeah. But still, to address the elephant in the room, obviously fake background, right? And I don't think anybody thinks I have that type of trophy wall, but there's an elliptical behind me. I moved my office downstairs. I figured this would be a little better than an elliptical. So
I like the track lighting.
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's nice. It just had some fellas down the road throw it together. So
What kind of wood is that on them beams?
engineered, the fancy stuff.
Ooh, fancy indeed.
Yeah, particle board, bub.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
That is good stuff.
So we'll drop an intro on the podcast, and I'll probably allude to Dave's entry. What'd you share this week? It's been 10 years? No, 7
7.
years. 7 years since Dave made his splash landing into the Ohio outdoors with his coyote den thread.
Cannonball, baby.
Since then, lots of good memories made. One of the things that I want to talk about while we're on here today was the vent furnace experiment when we went, probably year number 2 or 3, but for the first year for us hunting together.
Mhm.
And the 3 of us stood outside of a truck at 8 o'clock in the morning in the middle of nowhere.
Who else was there? Dano, Gordo, his
Dan was
buddy.
there, Gordo. I think Clay was there that year.
Yes,
maybe.
Clay was there.
Yeah.
That's probably the best group that we had there. And the 3 of us laid out as drivers on ground that none of us had ever hunted together. It was the first time that any of us had hunted together, let alone hunted that ground together.
Yeah.
We took off on a 3 to 4 hour walkabout, and all 3 of us emerged within the same general point on the holler within 20 minutes of one another.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Perfectly executed a deer drive for some guys that never hunted together on a piece of ground. And to me, that's always said that for both of you guys, I'll hunt with you anytime, any place, anywhere, because we drew up a plan, we executed, and nobody had to worry about anybody else.
Right.
And that doesn't always work that way.
No, it doesn't. It was a large piece of ground also. A little bit of mixed habitat from, hollows with hardwood hollows to clear cut tops. And it was pretty good. I was impressed with the amount of deer that were still in there that late in the season. Usually public land, especially around Ohio, anything you get to that's fairly easy is hammered pretty hard. But with good snow on the ground, you were still able to see that the deer in there were being deer. They were still off on the points, a little bit over on the crest, bedding in relatively open timber. Just tells me that, during bow season, early shotgun season, they weren't being molested. So I was impressed to see that.
Well, it was textbook too. You and I walked up that ridge together. Almost every one of them fingers we come across of it's textbook. What everybody talks about, your south facing slope. You get on them knobs on the first bench, and them deer are bedded there. Yep. And that's what it was. You and I seen that almost every time. You were just over the edge from us. We ended up catching your tracks up at the top, but I mean, it was textbook. Just everything that you read about, everything you hear about on these podcasts, everything else, it was textbook. Exactly what everybody says. Look in these spots. Those deer were there.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, deer being deer that late in the season was pretty impressive.
When we first looked at that, you and I were kicking around. We did the muzzleloader hunt the very first year. We went to AEP in the big section that everybody's pretty familiar with. And now, like, shout out to the Hunting Public guys, right? They've made this pretty popular. Their muzzleloader videos are some of my favorite to watch because we can directly relate to what it's like to walk into heavily pressured public ground, formulate a game plan, and come out with a deer, at least come out with an experience. And we did kill a deer. Rick killed the deer the first year that we were at AEP. But, when we started looking at other places to go, you and I talked about Vent Furnace, and we picked that location primarily because of the obvious topography and the south-facing slopes there. We really felt like we could go in and do what Dave just said, was bump deer off those south-facing points.
Yep.
It worked pretty good.
It did. We got quite a few of them up. I don't think anybody shot one that time, but we did see deer. We did get deer up. We just didn't have enough people to cover the ground, adequately that we were trying to cover, and we just had to play the terrain, right? There's only so much you can do with 8 guys, which seems like a lot, but it's really not. So
We covered a lot of ground for 8 guys.
yeah,
400
We did.
acres probably. Yeah, it's probably a little aggressive.
yeah. I think, and you got some bobcat tracks down in the hollow, right? So
Yeah, that big steep hollow. Well, actually, right about where him and I cut into one another.
Where you did the gorilla thing up there?
Yeah, where I proved my Appalachian status by being able to go vertical pretty quick.
Didn't even
Yeah,
use your legs.
that was around the time where bobcats we were seeing them somewhat frequently across the forum, but they weren't quite all the way to the common currents that they are now.
right.
So to find them all the way back in that holler there it's pretty cool. I mean, that's one of those hollers where I know I found myself thinking about it the whole way through was, what if I found this in 1810 when I'm trying to cut tracks west through Ohio? This is a whole lot different experience than knowing that I'm a mile and a half from my truck right now.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's hard to put yourself in the shoes of those settlers a lot of times and think about the things that they must have seen at that time. I believe Ohio still had elk. There was still a pretty healthy bear population, black bear population. So, to think back on that, and think of the game that was there and in those hollows at the time was pretty amazing.
Man, we're on the cusp of season changes right now. Your season changes look a lot different now that you've moved south. What's going on in the Mississippi Delta in March right now?
Hot. It's starting to get there, right?
Yeah.
There's
Hot.
an A and a W in there.
Yeah, it is. That doesn't seem too bad today, mid-70s, but the humidity's up. So, coming out of cool temperatures, which, for here is, lows in the 40, 45 at night, around in there, 55, 60 during the day. You acclimate different, right? Since I didn't have that cold winter, I'm not acclimated to the heat. And it's a give and take, right? It's just like you guys there. You come out of a hard February, and then you get that warm day in March, and it's 52 degrees, and you're wearing short sleeves and shorts, and you're like, it's time to go swimming.
It's 75, baby. That's today. Oh, we got the windows open. Yeah, there was pontoon boats on the local lake today.
And look at us. Now we're inside
Nice.
talking to you.
There we go. Yeah, I was outside building shelving. That's why I look like a hot mess here. But yeah, it's what was it? 3 weeks ago, we were over in Florida, chasing some pigs, and ended up shooting a pig over there. And I think this weekend is opening for youth turkey here in Mississippi. So our turkey season opens not this weekend, but next. So
Saw that picture of your boys today. It's not gonna be a whole lot longer till you can be dragging them along. They're grown men right now.
oh yeah, they're growing up fast. It's hard to look at my youngest and think he's only 3, because he comes up almost to my rib cage.
No way, man.
Yeah, and
He
so
looks so much bigger than Kenna, and he's 2 years younger. But as that picture today, I'm like, my God, that kid might as well be 8.
yeah, he turned 3. He'll turn 4 in May, and he's 42 pounds. And he's
Me
not
too.
a chunky kid. Me too.
42 pounds
Maybe
overweight.
Well, That's why you gotta cut hairs.
And
I
so
was
there's-
enjoying this conversation.
Yeah, so there just came out of shooting some pigs, and then right into turkey season. It's time to start getting the boat ready, and because we'll be out on the water here soon, chasing fish, and yeah, having
It's
fun.
not taking you very long to make the full flip of the script from being prepared to hunt, fish, Ohio to
Right.
you're way back into the Bayou Boy stage now, the boat and the whole 9. You ready to roll?
Running a
He's
john
home.
boat up the bayou, yeah, and
Yeah.
throwing jugs out. Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a lot to do, right? You can, like here, I took the boy out last weekend. We did a little jug fishing. We weren't in a very productive oxbow on this river. I think the fish were still predominantly out in the main channel, but I didn't want to get out there in the current with him. And so we didn't do too hot with it, but yeah, it's just different where you can go up a river in Oxbow, throw out 20 jugs and you don't have to worry about it. I did that on the reservoir in Ohio. Old Green Britches would be looking to put me under the jail, so
Right.
it's just a little different.
Yeah.
You pretty much, if you've hunted Ohio for a long time, you're spoiled. I'm just going to tell you, you're spoiled. Hunting is not the same everywhere. Here, I got here, I'm looking up, public land. Just north of me is DeSoto National Forest, and they have a mandatory check system where you have to check in deer. And, so I was looking through the deer harvest reports and I'm like, oh, well, that's cool. Now I can see how many deer were killed on these thousands of acres last year. And I'm like, 6 deer, right? That were checked in. Even if you say it's a 25% check-in ratio, right? You still got, 24 deer that were killed on that piece of public. And then you say, okay, well, the bucks, let's check them because they score them, number of points and all that. And, there is a little bit of antler restrictions here, but if you kill a good 6 point, and I don't mean like an Ohio good 6 point where you're like, that's a big 6, but what we typically think of as even a 1-year-old or 2-year-old deer, son, you did something. You're hanging that dude's head over the tailgate driving out of there.
Right.
And so coming from,
You know, Ohio 6 point.
yeah, no, not even close.
Not those.
I'm talking
No.
6 point, buddy.
That's a backyard deer. I can't take a whole lot of credit for it. That's what's called happens when you live in a suburban environment and they find golden acorns in a particular location.
It happens. It happens.
On
Everybody
the
likes
flip
to
side
watch.
of that, though, we can't touch the fish that you have.
No.
Yeah, that is true, right? So you have to adapt.
Yeah, and when you're talking hunting, Ohio has deer,
Pretty much.
Yeah,
and squirrels.
Yeah.
pretty good turkey population in a lot of places, but yeah, they're hunted
I
hard.
told him that we were not going to say the word turkey
Okay.
while I was on here. So just if we can edit that out.
No editing, man. We're talking about turkeys.
We'll add that to the beat button, right?
But
So
still,
it'll be-
there's not much really to do in Ohio besides deer. That's what we got. We got deer.
Yeah, and I like to fish, and I fished my whole life. And before I moved to Ohio, I lived in Kentucky for a number of years too. And I went out to the reservoir. In the 15 years I lived in Ohio, I might have bought 4 or 5 fishing licenses. That's it. Because I went out to the reservoir there, and guys are catching crappie, and they've got a stringer full of 6-inch crappie. And you're like, by the time you fillet that out, there's nothing there. This isn't worth my time. And I never got up to the big pond to do some walleye fishing and perch up there, but I hear that's phenomenal. Guys fishing the river.
That is the one fishery.
Yeah, but as far as like here off in the Gulf, just right off the coast here, we have speckled trout, sea trout, redfish, drum, all kinds of different fish. And then freshwater, you go a little bit north and you get into some slab, 14-inch crappie, big 15-inch crappie. I think some of our lake restrictions are like 15-inch, 15-inch crappie. And you're like, that's pretty big. And then you look at the limit and you can keep 30 a day, and so okay, you can really get into them. But
We call slabs a 11 or a 12-incher.
Yeah, a hand.
yeah. And then I got to apply for an alligator tag here soon. That's kind of a lottery system here. We'll see how that goes, but yeah.
It's interesting you hit on the fisheries because I had lunch, must have been Wednesday, with some guys that aren't from around here, and we started talking about what do you do for fun around here? Well, for me, the answer is pretty simple. Yeah, if I'm not drinking beer, I'm drinking beer in preparation for hunting something of some sort. And so what I call the terrestrial animal experience here is pretty rich where I'm at. But
yeah,
you grow up in Southeast Ohio because of the rivers being the way they are here. We have a lot of industrial development along the rivers. You don't grow up eating fish around here. So I didn't know what that was like until I met Nate, and Mike, and Swantucky, and Hunter.
That's where I grew up, was up there.
Right. So you have a totally different accessible food source where all of a sudden now old school bartering makes sense. Like, well, you're not procuring squirrels or rabbits or turkeys or deer in the volume that we are, but you guys can go pull walleye and perch from the lake in quantities that we can't even fathom because you can't even eat the fish where I'm from.
It's almost a
Right.
different state up there though, compared to the rest of, even where I'm at in Southwest Ohio is I'm right on the edge. You guys both been there. A lot of members have actually been to my place where I'm right on the break of the Northwest Ohio style of flat,
Yep.
and you got square miles where you got a 15 or 20 acre square woods in the middle of it.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's Fayette County. Brock talks about it all the time.
Oh,
Fayette County is it can be productive if you got that
Yeah.
woodlot.
Right.
You need to have that spot where
yeah.
down here you can. What do you want to do today?
Right.
Right.
You can go and
Yeah.
do it, and
And
it has
even
to do
then-
with the woods. Where the rest of that whole Northwest, everything else doesn't have to do with the woods. It has to do with the water.
Right.
So it's
Right.
like two totally different languages. When you're in Northwest Ohio and you're talking about going and getting a meal, you got a rod and reel in your hand.
Right.
Around here, you got a shotgun in your hand.
True.
So
Yeah.
I mean, it's
It is,
not
it's
comparable.
totally different. And even in Clark County there, right, which is on that edge of that kind of a little further south of that. But it's right there on the edge of the ag versus you can be into Southern Ohio pretty quick too. And it's the same deal. If you don't have that 15, 16 acre wood block, you're out of the game. You're hunting fence rows. And there were numerous instances where I would get a deer on camera in wood block A, and then 4 or 5 hours later would get him on a different camera in woodblock B 1.5 miles away, because they're just going woodblock to woodblock. And when you sit there and you say, well, where's this deer's home range? He might have 6 square miles of different woodblocks that he bounces around in. So when you go and you set up in that woodblock to hunt that deer, you have no idea if he's in this one this week, that one this week, or where he ended up last night. You're just trying to play it. No pattern really.
Getting driving as it had was, we went and got beer. I want to hear all the hatred I can hear from
Good.
the
I saw
natural
the
light
lady.
tall boys. It's
Right.
still daylight outside, so
hey Dustin,
no,
I'm working it, bud.
yeah. I got plenty of time to switch over to some real beer, but I live a mile from the beer store, but it took us a half an hour to get home. So I took Dave all the way around the country mile.
Yeah.
And when we started getting back into my vicinity, I pointed out a couple of fields and said, hey, when the summer emerges, we're sort of in the circle of when I see big bucks, I think these are big bucks that could potentially wander past my house. 3 deer on the barrel are all from here, from my house. The 8-foot over my head's from the farm. The deer at the farm stay pretty tight. There's not a lot of, I feel like if I'm not within sight of a mile boundary at the farm, I'm not seeing deer that I can see, because just the general topography in the neighborhood versus around here, as soon as you get out my back door, there's a lot of big country here.
Yeah.
And so we had that conversation about what is that radius where it makes sense to say, I saw a buck that's 2 miles from my house, that's a deer I can hunt, or that's 6 miles from. And the conversation really was, how bad do you want to move around? How bad do you need to move around to find a piece of ass, someplace to eat, someplace to sleep, someplace to be safe?
And the
you don't have
example I gave you when we were out there driving around was, it's nothing to put on 8 or 10 miles looking for a damn antler, a piece of
Right.
bone. We'll put on 8 or 10 miles before lunch.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
deer,
around.
that's their backyard.
Yeah, but down there in Southern Ohio too, I think they hold a lot tighter core than they do up in
We
Northern
talked
Ohio, like
about
we
that
mentioned.
too.
Yeah, going to the wood blocks. And I think predominantly, right, deer don't have a whole lot of reason to move. They're not being pressured. They're not being ran out of there. They have decent security and food. This hollow looks like the next hollow, right?
Right.
I can move a mile, but it's still the same thing. I still got oak trees. I still have water. As long as I'm not being pressured, why do I gotta run around a whole bunch? We just don't. So
How long have you been in Mississippi now? A little over a year and a half?
about 1.5 years. Yeah.
Anything you miss about Ohio?
Surprisingly, some of the winter, right?
Yeah.
I always love, the one thing that I always love is usually in late January, February, you get a good hard snow. And there were a few years that I lived there that happened when there was a full moon. You give me a hard snow on a full moon, buddy, I will drive the roads all night long. You know, it's just,
Looking
it's
for
nice.
coyotes.
Anything, man, anything. It's so weird. It's a beautiful sight when you can see across miles of ag fields, and it's like twilight, but it's dark. It's 2 a.m. It's 3 a.m. There's nobody out there. You see a little bit of smoke coming out of somebody's chimney, and it's just peaceful and nice. That's the one thing I miss that is hard to explain to people that have never really even seen snow down here. So
Kind of odd that you mentioned that, because like that's the one thing I really miss about Alaska is that right there, what you just said. In September, I mean, this is September, October is the hunting season up there, and they don't have the sundown rules. That's not a
Yeah.
law. As long as you're using natural light, you can hunt all night. 'Cause,
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Night.
different kind of hunting up there, and like that's exactly what I miss about that up there. I was always upset because I'm not real smart. Everybody knows that. My binoculars would outperform my optics on my gun.
Yeah.
So I could see a moose plain as day in my binoculars, and I'm checking them out, and I can't find them in the scope. Like that would make me so mad.
Right.
But that's what I miss now.
Yeah.
That's what I miss now. And late season this year, I got trapped in the stand. And I think I was there. I was texting you, Joe, I think in the big group text and whatnot, telling everybody I was trapped there for almost 2 hours.
yeah, with deer around them.
All I was covered up.
Yeah.
But without those good binoculars, how many of them deer would I have blown out?
Right.
Because I would have never known they were there until I opened the door of the blind. And next thing you know, everybody, I don't care how dark it is, you can see a white tail. Like,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I found the biggest difference there for me was with millimeter objective on the optics on the front of it, right? Light gathering ability. You've got a 40 millimeter objective binocular, and then you go to a 30 on a scope. It's a lot different, as far as light
it
gathering.
makes a huge difference.
Yeah. But yeah, I'd say that's the one real thing that I miss the most. Hunting wise, obviously the caliber of the deer. I went deer hunting. I've been down here 2 deer seasons now in a 1.5 years, and I've went out deer hunting once. It's just, once you've hunted Ohio for 15 years, this isn't going to trick your trigger. You're not taking the bow off the hook to go swat mosquitoes at 60 degrees, 65 degrees, to shoot a raghorn. It's just not going to do it. But there's other things to hunt, right? I mean, you can go kill pigs or get into duck hunting, right? Have an awesome flyway down through here, and but our fishing season too is extended. November timeframe is some of the best fishing you'll find here, even up closer to Christmas, and then here we are, late February, it's back open. So
I think fish, particularly shrimp, especially, it's like that thing you can't have, right? There's something to me about, I take for granted, and I hate to say that because it sounds terrible, but venison's venison. Like I've grown up around it my whole life. We just eat it. It's a part of life. It's as much a part of life as it is beef around here. Squirrels a little bit, rabbits a little bit, turkey a little bit, but man, when you get walleye and walleye cheeks particularly, to me, that's like walleye cheeks that might as well be scallops. And I have a particular fondness for those because they come from our state, whereas scallops do not. I've always loved shrimp. Growing up, growing up, my favorite meal ever was the 21-piece fried shrimp meal from Shoney's, right? Like,
right.
Little old redneck boy from Southeast Ohio. If you take me to Shoney's, get me the 21-piece fried shrimp, I'm in.
Yep.
Then you discover crab and lobster and scallops. But then I was probably 25 when Swan Tucky came down to hunt with me the first time. He's like, he did the walleye fillets in the packet, but then he breaded and fried walleye cheeks. I was like, where has this been my whole life? You mean I can get this in my own state? But to Dave's point, it's a different state at that point. But
Yep.
still, there's something to be said about like the thing you can't have, which is from the sea. We don't
Right.
get that where we're at. And so when you came up and brought shrimp with you this last time,
Yeah.
that's the best damn shrimp I've ever had because it's fresh. It came from a guy I know, and he sure as hell ain't getting that from Washington County, Ohio.
No, it did not come out of a mud puddle in Thailand,
No.
for sure.
But
Yeah,
we ate it in Highland,
that's
Highland
right.
County, Ohio.
Highland County, yeah. So that is a blessing here, the ability to get like fresh Gulf shrimp, right? That and oysters. We went over into Florida to hunt hogs. Bob had stopped by a local seafood wholesaler there. They usually don't sell to the public, I think. And he just said, "Hey, looking to buy some oysters." And I think he bought 100 oysters still in the shell, room temp, so they're still alive. They're not even really on ice yet. It just came off the boat. 100 of them for $40. Put them in the cooler.
Yeah.
Throw some ice on them, and we sat on the back porch, with a glove and a knife, popping oysters open, and eating them. It was fantastic. So you can't get that. But on the same side, if I didn't come up to Ohio earlier this year, and Dave wasn't gracious enough to take me up to one of his spots, that freezer in there would be empty of venison. So there's give and takes. Well, I shouldn't say empty of venison. There's plenty of deer around here. I'd have shot one somewhere. But for the most part,
But would you have shot one in the manner of which you shot one?
I had that grape drink out there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Grape drink mafia.
Hey, that's a headache. That's in back in Mississippi.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, here, deer taste different, right? Just like the shrimp that you're eating there versus the shrimp we're getting here. They taste different because of what they eat. In Ohio, they're either ag deer or they're Southern Ohio, acorn fed deer. Here, they eat a lot of acorns, but the soil consistency closer to the coast is predominantly swamps, so you have swamps that they get around in just fine, but a lot of times you're taking a boat into where you're hunting. And in those, there's a higher sulfur content in the vegetation. So the deer eat that. Obviously, they have a little bit more of a sulfur taste to them. Further up north, you say, so you say, I want to get away from that. I want to go up for a little further north and, get some deer that aren't like that. Well, then you're into the pine belt of Mississippi, and it tastes like you marinate them in pine salt. So there's a give.
Take your pick.
Take your pick, right? Yeah.
I'm
So,
not sure if you left me with those two choices. Well,
When we lived in Idaho, that's the way it was up there too. Everything tastes like sage. I don't really like sage, so I didn't hunt a whole lot.
Right.
Actually, I did a lot of upland bird hunting when I lived there, but
I know Dave doesn't want to talk about turkeys, but
it's a good time.
I'm fired up, son. I'm fired up.
He's gonna go number one.
This is my jam, right?
Let's do it. I'll admit to was yesterday or day before yesterday? Must have been day before yesterday. I woke up and I opened the French doors in our bedroom. I heard my turkey go, and he's obvious because he's like a lazy gobbler.
Mm-hmm.
He only like 60% gobbles. But then I realized that another 150 yards further away from him was a real gobble. Somebody trying to find something. Dude, we're right on the cusp right now, but a hot topic up here. And I just saw yesterday, I watched the Land and Legacies, one of the groups on YouTube that I watched, and they did a consultation with Aaron Warburton, hunting public, on his family farm, but talking about somewhat deer habitat, but also turkey habitat. And those guys mentioned specifically that they are really busy this spring with clients, particularly in Ohio, talking about how do we reestablish turkey habitat, because there's no denying that we're down. We're on a downward trend right now. Lots of opinions about why that is. I know you've got great experience with turkeys, but also with trapping on the fur bear side. From my farm's perspective, habitat's been pretty consistent. What I can say that I've been lazy at is raccoons, bobcats on the rise. You were seeing that on your way out on your way to Mississippi. What's your thoughts on where our turkey trajectory is headed if we don't step in and really work on the habitat for the turkeys and not just the deer?
Yeah, I definitely. Habitat's always important for turkeys, and I'm not a turkey biologist, but we did have the opportunity to hunt a group of turkeys there in Clark County. That there's not a lot of turkeys in Clark County for those that don't know, right? At the time, there were 15, 20 maybe shot in a season, and Alex and I accounted for 2, 3, sometimes 4 of those, right? From different places, but these groups of turkeys we would find, and they wouldn't be there in the spring. They would only show up early in the spring, right? I should say they wouldn't be there in the fall or during deer season. So they were somewhere, and we never figured out where these turkeys were staying, during late summer, even into the fall deer season. Where were they? We have no idea, but they would always show up in these key little spots right before turkey season happened. And what we noticed, and it was kind of nice to be able to, because we did a lot of scouting too. But it was nice to have that little concentration area of turkeys, because one thing that we noticed was the hens would show up first, wherever they came from, their big winter flock busted up. The hens would show up first. And then about a week or 2 after that, the toms would show up. Usually your immature gobblers, your jakes and stuff first, and then your toms. And we were scouting one day, and we checked out this one area, and there was this tom just hammering. And we're like, okay, so we know this guy's here, we'll keep that in mind for season. Well, Alex had a job down the road from that place later that day, and he was doing lawn landscape type stuff. And he's out there working on their landscaping, and he hears that bird. He was close enough to hear it gobbling. And there's an old abandoned kind of railroad track that goes through there. And so he hears that bird gobbling way out to the west of him, probably 1/4 mile or so, somewhere in there. And that bird walked down that abandoned railroad track, gobbling, and just kept going. And to this day, we're convinced that bird ended up with this other group of birds that we know, and always, those hens were there. And so I think those toms, when they set out, they go and find those hens too. And I think the hens come back predominantly. I don't know if they're like mallards or what, but from what we witnessed, and I can't say it's the same birds, but I had a gut feeling that these hens came back to the same area to nest every year. Maybe it's where they were born. Maybe it just had to do with habitat, but those hens were there for a reason. And the reality is, if those hens weren't there, those toms weren't going to be there. And so when we talk about turkey management, it not only do I look at it as predation or habitat. When you think about habitat for, like with deer, you think about food, right, and security. But I think that the key element with turkeys is nesting habitat. If you have good nesting habitat, you take care of some of the predation, you're gonna have turkeys, right? Those hens are gonna be there, those toms are gonna be there. They may not be there during gun season, or during deer season, right? But they're going to show up in the spring. So
Yeah, we've I think the thing that keeps us consistent is big roost trees on points. But over time we've added nesting habitat in places that would have been previously hayfield, for lack of a better term. But I think we have those consistent topographical features, but also trees that have been there for 150 years that provide a roost location. But when we kept it pristine, there's no place to nest. Right? When we bought the farm off of the guy in 2005, he mowed everything he could get a brush hog on. Whereas nowadays, let the deer hunter take over. We've let some stuff grow up. Now, if you're a hen turkey, there's places that you can leave eggs and feel comfortable about. That previously didn't exist. So I think that gives us a head start to what you're saying is, if the hens are comfortable, because they know this has historically been a place that they could hide eggs, they're starting there, which means that when things start to get kicked off, I sent you guys that text last week. I got a pretty good long beard in there that he's by himself, and I get the sense that as the weather starts to break, he's just out kicking around, kicking rocks, trying to figure out,
where the hens are.
Where's the ladies at?
Yep.
You got any turkey advice? No turkey advice? I know you got some shed advice.
You done fucked me up with turkey talk. I can't talk about nothing else.
We'll get off it soon
I'm
enough.
about half
but,
asleep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
come on.
Right.
Guy acts like there's no turkeys in Northwest Ohio. There are
There
no
is
turkeys in
not.
Northwest
Or
Ohio.
that knob thing you said,
What's a knob?
What
What's
the
a
hell is
point?
that?
Yeah,
I seen
Yeah.
some ditches.
yeah. You got some ditches.
Oh yeah, they'll sit on
Kinda.
they'll sit on
They're
the
in there.
guardrail,
Yeah.
roost
Yeah.
up there.
They're in there. They make do, right? When you don't, I mean, obviously a turkey would rather have them big, nice roost trees with huge limbs on it, that they don't get shook around a bunch in the weather. Because I mean, you think about a turkey, it's just like a chicken, right? When you make a roost,
Just like a chicken, and they're cheap.
yeah.
Get them at Kroger's.
99 cents a pound after Thanksgiving.
Oh
right?
yeah.
Yeah. And so when you make
And
a
you ain't
roost
gotta get
spot,
up that early in the morning to get them.
yeah, that's the worst part about turkey season. And so when you make a roosting area in your chicken coop, right, you don't use a dowel rod, you use a board, something, because they like to have good flat feet on something and sit there. And turkeys are the same way. They don't want to sit on a little 3-inch diameter limb and hold on to it all night. Even though they're amazing that they can do that. And I've seen them do it in pretty high winds.
Yeah.
But they like those bigger trees. Unless it's blowing, real hard wind, I've seen them come down, just roost 20 foot off the ground to get out of that wind. But
Big old swamp oak on the creek.
yeah. And I've seen them in cottonwoods and a lot of other trees. I've never seen them in a oh crap, what's the name of that
Pine.
tree?
I've never seen one in the pine.
Yeah, I've seen them in pines. What's the name of? I keep forgetting the name of this tree. I always confuse it with a cottonwood, but it's marshy areas along the creek and it's white.
Like a silver maple?
No, like a
No.
sycamore.
Yeah, sycamore. I've never seen them in a sycamore.
Oh, the white part.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
white
that
part.
part.
Yeah, never seen them in a sycamore tree. Along a creek, we had a group that would roost in there, and they would always either get in the big black walnut or an oak tree, and they had a ton of big, giant, nice sycamores in there that they could have been in. And I tell you, I never saw one roosted in one. I don't know
You
if
ever
it's
lived around sycamores?
the slickness to them.
No, they're constantly breaking off. I got, like I said earlier, you guys been in my house. There's sycamores everywhere. I got that creek bottom there, and it's constantly breaking off. Constantly, they don't sit still, and they get them big hollow holes in them too. So your wood ducks, your raccoons, your squirrels, there's always action
Makes sense.
going on. It is literally like a thicket only in the air.
Yeah.
So it's a
Yeah.
habitat that so many other wildlife use. Where, damn it, now you guys got me talking turkeys. Where turkeys ain't comfortable because there's always some movement and noise.
Right. And that would make sense.
I ain't
to
talking
me.
no more turkeys. Quit it. Dragging me into this shit.
So yeah, turkey season's coming up. It's Dave's favorite.
Oh, love it.
Yeah.
Can't think of anything else I'd rather do.
He gave
Catch them walleyes.
I don't know. He gave me a good segue. Sycamores and wood ducks. So one of my favorite, like WTF, and we're already going to put out the not safe for work function for this podcast. But one of my favorite deer hunting what the fuck moments was sitting on a piece of property that we call Hippie Ridge. I'm sitting there and I hear a wood duck screaming coming through the woods, and I'm 400 yards from the closest pond or creek of any sort, but there's a little seep probably 100 yards out the ridge top from me. There's a seep coming, I don't know, probably 20, 30 yards down from the ridge top. And it's wet enough that there's one sycamore tree growing in there that's probably about 12 inches wide. And there's just, what I didn't notice at the time was a perfect hole the size of a baseball that on the bottom half of it was brown and waxy. And I heard that wood duck and kind of woke me up a little bit. And I looked out just in time to see that wood duck hit that hole in that sycamore tree in the middle of the woods.
Gone.
And how in the world that wood duck found that particular tree. And again, I'm talking, I'm pretty much in the middle of a section of woods that how they found that is beyond me, but it's one of my favorite, just being aware of your surroundings in terms
Yeah.
of trees and habitat and how animals use that. To see that wood duck find that hole in the middle of nowhere, and clearly not his first venture, because all of that oil off of his belly was just waxed up on the edge of that hole. And they've been in and out of there. Kind of like a guy trying to climb into a coyote den.
Yeah.
Talk about them turkeys.
I never, wood ducks, man, I hated them because Clark County, right, you got fence rows and creeks, and it seems like every daggum time I went to cut through a fence row during deer season or go across a creek, some wood duck would blow up out of a little mud puddle, right, and scare the crap out of me every daggum time. And in places like you said that you wouldn't expect, like if I thought to myself, all right, I'm going to take the gun and I'm going to go jump shoot some ducks. That's not where I would have been.
Yeah, no way. Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Well, all right. If you don't want to talk about turkeys, you know, what do you
I don't
want
want
to
to talk about coyote dens neither.
talk? Well,
I'll tell you, when I was driving over here today, I actually put the thought in my head of, well, where all does two touch?
Yeah.
Geographically, we got Chuck up north. We might as well call him a Canadian.
yeah, means to connect Michigan, New Jersey.
You go out west, we got Tom. He's right on the water almost.
Washington. Yeah.
Right. You head south, we got you and that other idiot, him and his dish pickles. I don't know. I can't tell you how many times I got over that.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell's a dish pickle? Like, it's a basket. Like, relax, people. It's okay. He's eating them.
That sounds
I
way
thought-
worse.
I know.
I thought you
it's
were
like
gonna lose
voodoo
it.
around here. Like, you can't eat an ass. It's okay.
No,
It's
you
just a
don't.
food source.
You don't eat a basket.
Right. That's what I said. You can't do it. It's like voodoo around
It's
here.
fighting words.
Right. Like,
Yeah.
what the hell with turkeys? Like, that ain't good neither. Right. I get
Right.
it.
It's like shooting
Sorry.
does in Pennsylvania 20 years ago, right?
Right.
Exactly.
Only girls
mean
shoot does.
Antler.
Then you go out the other way. We've got the Jersey Shore boys.
Yeah.
You guys are touching the lower 48.
We got some
Yeah.
big contributors in North Carolina now.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, the
Sure.
lower 48, you guys have got locked down now. And I know Ohio's been put on the map recently for their deer hunting and everything else, but these guys don't just show up.
Right.
They actually contribute. They're not lurkers. They're members.
Oh yeah.
They show up to Sprouts.
Right.
I mean, these guys are beyond members. I mean, beyond somebody
Yeah.
just
And I think it helps too. It gives a lot of variety on the forum, right? You get to see things out of Louisiana and Mississippi and Florida and Carolinas and even out west in Washington. And like you said, the commonality between everybody is Ohio, obviously, right? We have a lot of people in Ohio too, but the contributing members that are outside of that also is just is always great.
It never ceases to amaze me the connections between members. Obviously spread about geographically, but almost everybody has some sort of common stream back to Ohio. You don't find, it's rare that somebody finds us that doesn't have, whether it's an early childhood memory of Ohio or moving there, but even something as simple as Chance had posted about his taxidermist.
yes.
And I had saw on my personal Facebook page, somebody had just got a deer back from this particular taxidermist. I'm like, I feel like I've heard that name before. So I Google it, and the number one search result is the Ohio Outdoors, and it's Chance's thread, which has got 100 some odd replies. It's like, that's how quickly the commonality, to your point, Joe, about the experience, right? All of these guys have one particular experience with a taxidermist, and now that guy who doesn't have a website, who doesn't have a Facebook page, now has a web presence because several of us share the experience of getting a deer done there.
Right.
And that's a rallying cry around just getting a good deer mount.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. You look at it across forums, right? They've taken a hit to social media over the past decade, especially the Facebook and Instagram, Twitter. But you know what? You could go on whatever Ohio Facebook post you want, right? Page and post on there. Ask that question about a taxidermist, and you may get a lot of replies. But Google and search engines are never going to index that, predominantly because they see a lot of those group conversations in those groups that may have thousands of members as not very good content. And I'm sure you've read through enough Facebook posts to know when you're looking through it, you're like, this is predominantly garbage, you know? So it's not indexed, it's not valued information. So when a member posts something about, hey, here's my taxidermist, and then you go and look and you say, I had a friend that used that taxidermist, then, you know, search engines start to relate that and say, hey, there's a group of people that have had experience that are discussing this. So we're going to actually put that, you know, on a search index. And I think that's valuable, right? Not only to us, but also the internet at large. So.
And you might be as well qualified to comment on this as anybody, because I still keep a pulse on social media because I have to. You're somebody that doesn't participate in social media besides two.
That's it.
You've seen the evolution of forums
Yes.
from sort of the original outlet for online inquisitiveness about a particular point, where I see trajectory for online and social media to go back to forums because of what Joe just pointed out. There contextually, there's something real there. And I think that's what you were trying to do when you first joined, was not only make sort of shock value, but show people.
I didn't do that on purpose.
There's more here than just a hashtag or an @ on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. There's a depth to the content on two that's unrivaled.
I probably have 50 people's phone numbers in my phone that I know I can count on. And there's probably another 50 that any of us could contact in a PM, and that person would be there for you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter what you need, even financially. Okay. I feel like I could talk to a brand new member, or not a brand new member, but somebody that's been around for a year, and I could talk to them. I'd be like, oh, man, I need $20 to get me home. They're gonna give me $20.
Right.
Like, I feel like that's 110% right there. Well,
yeah,
that's what people are missing nowadays.
Yep.
Is that so I can agree with you on, I feel like I need somebody to talk to.
Yeah.
Boom, you can talk to anybody.
Would you text me on Tuesday night? Hey man, I'm
I
headed
gotta
east.
I'm out. I gotta get out of my house.
I gotta pop smoke, get out of the house.
Right, I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm out. Like, I gotta go. Like,
I pulled my camper home this weekend just so he had a place to hang out.
yeah,
There you
like,
go. And a
and that's
classic.
it. That's exactly what we're talking about. And
Yeah.
I feel like I could do that with, I'm not gonna say any and every member, but a majority of the people that visit theohiooutdoors.com. There's your
Yeah.
shout out. Like, it doesn't matter. You can talk. It's an approachable group.
Yeah, well, you get to know them on a little bit deeper level, right? As friends, as people, you know, as husbands, wives, family members, you get to learn about their life, because it is that, you know, a little bit more concentrated. And classic example of that, right? The boat that I bought, the guy that had bought it from in Florida took it back to Ohio, stayed in his shop, never did anything with it. And anyways, ended up buying it from him. And so I'm like, oh, I got to go 14 hours up, 14 hours back, to drag this boat all the way back to the coast. And I thought of John. I knew he had a cabin in Tennessee. And I said, hey, John, no rush. Next time you're going to Tennessee, you mind dragging a boat down there for me? He said, oh, no problem, man. I'm going there anyways. He met my father-in-law. My father-in-law actually brought the boat over to his place. He hooked it to his truck, took it to his cabin in Tennessee. I met him up there, which was an 8-hour drive for me versus 14. Just invaluable to have friends like that, and know people that can help you out when you need help in life, right? It matters.
Hillbilly Express.
And classic example too, another of that, I sat down this morning, and somehow something came up on a link on Facebook, and I clicked on it and brought up Instagram. I'm never on Instagram. But, you know, when you first join, it asks you like, what are your interests? So they can show you a bunch of junk. And, you know, so I chose fishing, hunting, like the typical stuff, all of us, but I haven't invested any time in Instagram. And then all of a sudden I sit down this morning and I start scrolling through this feed, and it was nothing but, you know, barely dressed women holding fish, you know.
Wrong with that.
Yeah, nothing's wrong with that, but it's not the I want to see, you know, like this provides me no value. Yeah, she's hot. Yeah, she's holding a fish. But from a sportsman perspective, it provides no value to me, right? I don't know where you caught this fish, what you were using besides what your sponsors tell you were using. And it's become so heavily marketed that you can't differentiate, between, you know, reality and fiction of this, you know, sex sales ideology. And okay, well, whatever. So I'm scrolling through all these, you know, fishing thoughts or whatever, and I'm going through them. And then I get down and it's just, of course, you know, the Crush was on there and everything else. And the next thing you know, it's women in camo, you know, and it's just these blonde chicks with a nice ass in camo. And I'm just scrolling through it going, this is just garbage. It's nice to look at.
Yeah, we're sitting over in the
You got a
chat.
link?
Drop that in the chat. Send it over.
Ask her where she keeps her poop, right? I take it back. I have used Instagram a time or two.
That's why you got all them hits from that one.
Yeah.
That one night there at Logan County.
All I gotta know, all you need to know is about if you pick up my phone up and you hit on Instagram and a little search magnifying glass icon down in there, if you click on that, you're gonna see deer antlers, titties, bourbon, cigars, titties, deer antlers, bourbon, cigars. It's pretty standard.
It's Oh, they got it down pat, man.
Yeah.
If you like looking at hot chicks holding fish, man, that is your place to go.
I mean,
right?
occasionally,
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
sometimes.
Yeah.
But they always have tits.
That's right. That's what I'm saying. Pattern here. I don't think it's about the fish.
Right.
Disclaimer, I have 3 children, all of which are girls. So
Yeah.
I got my upcomings are coming.
Yeah. And so, but if you come back to kind of to where we were talking earlier, if you're a new hunter, right, or you're somebody that doesn't know a lot, you don't have a lot of family that hunts, and the only thing you have is that internet world to learn things, buddy, that's not where you want to be. You're not going to get any kind of information or anything out of, you know, those people trying to sell you something in a bikini. It's just not gonna work, man. So
Well, that goes back to what the other thing we talked about on the drive is how good people find good people.
Yep.
So that goes back to that, where that new hunter, boy or girl, if they actually care about, I'll bring it up again, turkey hunting, that you can find somebody on two willing to take you every step of the way, even to the point of taking them with you.
Right.
And that's what works with two, is that it's so personal. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what happens. You're not going to get the flashy, what we were just talking about. You're not going to get the flashy, boom, here you go. All I'm looking for is 1 like. No, that's not what two is about. I don't care how many likes anybody has in anybody's post or anything else. That's not what it's about. It's about actually trying to help somebody.
Right.
And better themselves. It has nothing to do with bettering yourself or anything else. Every member of two actually cares to help somebody else.
The best.
You can't find that. You can't find that anywhere.
Right. And don't get me wrong, we do have a thread full of fishing thoughts too. So, you know, we satisfy a little bit of that segment.
Right.
But yeah.
That's a given, but
These guys are going to be guys, right? But
no, the best example of what you're just saying, I think, is Al and his thread about dirt. Right. There's nothing sexy about that thread.
no.
other than there's a man who's spent a lot of time educating himself on soil microbes and the tillus, the non-till method of planting food plots. And whether you choose to read every single word, right? He's not confined to 140 characters or less, or whatever Twitter is now, or whatever Instagram or Facebook is now. He has all of the opportunity to whatever the characters are. If it takes him 10,000 characters to convey the message, Al does the best job of conveying a ton of information into a condensed time frame. And you can't get that in a Twitter post or an Instagram post or a Facebook post. Here's a man who's really dedicated himself to soil science that gets lost in any other social media platform.
Yeah.
Man knows answer every post.
And he will answer every post.
Yeah. And the man knows about dirt. And you know what? Even if you're on the forum and you're a part of that, and you see that, you may not read it because you may not have any concerns right now about dirt. But 2-3 years from now, when you go to put in a food plot or you go to do something, it's going to come up in your mind like, I know a guy that knows a lot about dirt. And so go back, read that thread. It's still going to be there. It's not going to be buried, way beyond even able to find it like it would in a Facebook group or somewhere else. And, but not only that, bring it back to the top, post, ask a question, or give the guy a call, right? Send him a PM and say, hey, you got a second, need to talk. That as, a resource is invaluable.
Yeah, Joe, I mean, it's changed so much since you and I talked, we were talking in July 2010.
Right now, or anybody wants to do something.
Yeah.
He's crazy.
Yeah, about in there. Yeah.
We talked July 2010 about we are losing internet. For the third time, we talked July 2010 about this concept of we can bring a better product to market.
Yeah.
And I think that in the past 12 years, we've seen, I think it's shocked both of us in terms of what access to information means to different people and how you access it, what type of information you access. And forums might be an antiquated way of conveying information, but what Albert does, particularly what we just discussed, doesn't necessarily translate to. It doesn't translate to Twitter. It kind of translates to Instagram and maybe better to Facebook. But I don't think that when you look at a captured audience, that you get the type of feedback that you get when you come to two and you post a question or you post a statement. I think you get challenged in a way that is hard to find on a social media platform because, to our credit or discredit, we have allowed things to go. We're adults, and if you want to have a conversation, if you want to make a strong statement, you better be ready to defend that thing.
Well, in a world that's so suppressed right now, you can say anything you want on too. And the people, the group is going to regulate. And just like this right here, the podcast, you guys took a run at it. We talked about it 15 times before I think this one's actually going to run, about how you guys had a gap. Nobody cares.
Right.
Nobody cares. This is the next step. We need to do the podcast. But in the end, this makes zero difference on what you guys actually do. You were just simply opening up something else. That's a different way to read. We covered 400 pages tonight.
Yeah.
In an hour.
Yeah.
You get to listen to it. You know what I'm saying? But it's still the same old shit.
Yep.
It's the same shit. It doesn't matter. We're talking. Oh, he brought up turkeys. Oh, fuck, Giles going. You know what I'm saying? Like it doesn't matter. It's the same thing. It's
Right.
a different way
Different
of
medium.
delivering it. And this has nothing to do with what you guys actually have.
Right.
And what two does. This doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And nobody's gonna call me and be like, "Hey Giles, man, what's up? Like, I seen your podcast.
How come
Like,
you didn't call into Coyote
Right.
Den on the podcast?
Yeah, you only drank 6 beers. What?
There's a bunghole back there.
Nobody
You
cares.
should have crawled in the bunghole on the barrel.
Yeah, nobody cares. Like this is not what builds two. This is something you guys could do literally once a year, and everybody would be like, "Hell yeah, that was awesome, man!"
Yeah.
Like that's
Yep.
funny. Like whatever. This step, I don't think you guys need to do.
Right.
Like it's awesome. It's great. I enjoy watching all 7 of them or whatever it's been now. Like except for the 6. You guys
You're
did
number
turkey
7.
one. Well, you guys did turkey one too. Whatever. Levi enjoyed it. My son enjoyed it, but I was like,
Oh yeah, I forgot. Hey Levi, we made your dad Insta famous tonight.
That's right."
You're welcome. The only reason we even had a podcast tonight was because you threatened me with a famousness about your dad.
I'm here, boy.
Yeah. I'm gonna let you guys finish up. I gotta pee.
It's right over there.
I'll be back.
Yeah, but I don't think this part's necessary. I mean, it's
No,
like
it's
I
just
said, it's the campfire, the virtual campfire that you guys already have. This literally is just something to entertain us between seasons.
just a different medium to deliver information, right? You can listen to it on the way home from work or, driving in a car or something else. But, I would also challenge anyone that hasn't been to one yet. And we have some members that have been around for a long time, but haven't been to a camp out, right? Haven't been to an official kind of meet and greet, if you will, right? Outing. Yeah. We have various ones around the state. Most recent coming up, right? We try to do one a year that's a kind of a family camp out where, bring the wife, bring the kids, have a little bit of fishing and things like that. And it's, more geared
Nick and I
towards.
were actually at oh no, I can't think of the name of it. We were at a recent campground shed hunting and it's about the center of the state. Somebody help me out here. I ain't got nobody.
No.
Deer Creek. We're at Deer
Okay.
Creek,
Okay.
which is
Deer
just
Creek.
south of Columbus there.
Yep.
And
Pickaway County.
honestly, if we have to move something, somebody say something. Just because we're doing it in Paint Creek, that was something that a couple of us were familiar with. It started there for the family group campground because I said something about I used to fish a lot, which I used to fish a lot.
Yeah.
And it goes back to what we talked about earlier about being in Northwest Ohio. When you go out to feed your family, you're going to get a fishing rod, not a shotgun. That goes back to the whole thing. But if we need to move it, let's move it. I mean, I don't put it in the center of the state and let's do this, but let's not do it for no reason. I mean, if there's people that want to show up, let's go.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the message that comes to mind, and you're the guest to convey this, and I mean this both with a little bit of tongue in cheek and jest, but with the utmost respect, is I feel like we're in the position to be one of the best internet advisors for new hunters. You can show up and show your ass and ask about coyote dinner and still end up being really good friends with a lot of people, and you have 50 phone numbers in your phone, and you can just show up and hang out for a weekend if you're real and authentic. We know that's few and far between when it comes to Twitter and Instagram and Facebook as far as real and authentic goes, but if you're somebody that happens across this podcast on YouTube or wherever you find it on your favorite podcast subscription network, that you have a legitimate you have a legitimate question, I really feel like you're hard pressed to find a group of people that will give you more information willingly, that will spend more time intentionally trying to make you more knowledgeable in whatever it is you're seeking. And that's the thing that I always tell people about this forum is, if you have a question about anything, old ammunition, old firearms, coyote trapping, deer hunting, rabbit hunting,
log cabin building,
right? Bourbon, cigars, whiskey, whatever, right?
It's there.
Ask that question. Somebody on our forum, that's their thing, right? And you're so hard pressed to find a one-stop shop for that kind of quality information.
Quality. That's what you just said right there.
And
quality. I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. I'm not a Hoyt fan. I'm not a Matthews fan. I'm not the fanboy.
Right.
What you're gonna get on too is what you just said. Quality.
Right.
Quality information.
And yeah, and it comes back to what Jesse was saying a minute ago about, the censorship and everything else on the internet today. And you can kick the door in and come in like the Kool-Aid man, and you just got to understand that everybody's men here, right? And so, like anything, anywhere that, if you're out fishing with your buddies, they're going to rag on you some. That's kind of hard to come across in text sometimes, but just know it always comes from a good place. Nobody's really trying to slam anybody. And you're going to get that good quality information, and to put that out there is in a number wise, right? Jesse, you mentioned July of 2010 is when you and I discussed this, starting the Ohio Outdoors. And we looked at it and said, you know what, I think there's a better way. I think because the previous website was very held to sponsors, high censorship, a lot going on there. And we said, these are a bunch of guys that want to be a bunch of guys. They don't want to sit around and, I can't say this because this sponsor is a member of the site or whatever else. And so we said, let's do it. Let's open the door. Let's let guys join, and let's just hands-off approach, no heavy moderation, right? None of that type of stuff. And the previous website had about 10 years, I think 10 or 11 years head start, had been around for a while. So now they've been around for 22, 23 years. And we are within 20,000 posts of surpassing their all-time post high. So
we'll be the first Ohio hunting forum to ever hit 1 million posts.
We will be. Yeah. And so to put that in perspective, since October 7th of last year, so encompassing, all of deer season, our members have put up almost 25,000 posts, almost 25,000 responses. Our nearest closest competitor is 2,200. I guarantee you it's mostly junk. If you went and looked at it. And so just the amount of information and activity going on there, I think it's invaluable, right? I would suggest everybody take a look. But
our conversation was so simple in terms of you calling me, I think we can do this better. I was already in the mindset. And now you look back at, we said a very simple, we've laughed about this a lot, right? It's the worst business case of all time because we make no money, right?
Yeah.
But we had a very clear goal and a very clear mission, and that was the quality exchange of quality information amongst quality people. We've never wavered on that. I think we only get stronger on that as we go. The podcast is a part of that. Busy schedules make that a hard thing to do all the time, but if you log on to theohiooutdoors.com, and I'm going in full salesperson mode right now, but I've always maintained that whatever your question is, throw it out there. Somebody has experienced that. They've tried it. They've done it. It's not worked. They've done it. It's worked. They've not done it, but they've seen the guys on the Hunting Public do it, right? They've seen Jeff Sturgis do it on Whitetail Habitat Solutions. Al's done that. There's no category for what he's done, right? Like you just have to.
He's his own.
Yeah, you have to engage that guy and ask him questions.
And he'll answer you.
and he'll answer you, and I love you, brother. He'll answer you in 10,000 words or less. But if you take the time to read that and digest it, there's so much there that you can learn about that.
Oh, yeah.
If that's your niche desire to learn, you'll get that. And I just don't think there's a lot of places left. If you look at archery talk over the last 10 years, they've lost that. They've just moved off into their own thing. I really believe nobody else is doing what we're doing.
How can they?
It's
How
hard.
can they? Everybody else sold out.
Yep.
Right.
They don't. This means nothing to them. What means something to them is the dollar.
Right.
I mean,
Well, absolutely. Key
you
point.
guys go
Our-
2 steps further, and we're going to be in trouble because I was drinking a Busch Light that wasn't covered up, and you didn't get the sponsorship or the, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like,
Right.
I'm so
right.
thirsty.
Right, like-
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
and
our
that's
nearest.
where the censorship and everything else comes in.
Yep. Yeah, our nearest close competitor I spoke about a moment ago that's been around for a long time, 20-something years. I think it was about 4 years ago or 5 years ago, sold out to a very large outdoor media group, right? And it's just a ship without a captain. It, you know, and when you go and you're looking at 20, 22 ads per, you know, page, right? It's almost, if you're epileptic, you are screwed when it comes to looking at it. And you know, and so, and the thing is, they don't want us, right? Very rarely do I get an email in my inbox saying, hey, I want to buy your website, because usually they've read it and they're like, oh crap, that's a lot of cleanup, right? We're gonna, oh my goodness, we're
We
gonna have
can't
to clear
afford them
up.
lawyers.
It's the hardest thing for me to explain, because both you and I are we're businessmen. Like our 9 to 5, Monday
Yeah.
through Friday, we interact with corporate America. You and I
Right.
know how to make money.
Right,
This is not a money-making venture, and it never has been.
Ain't about that though.
No.
no, it's
And
not.
very,
I
it's
mean,
very
we,
obvious if you poke around for 10 minutes on the site, which is a long time
Mhm.
nowadays.
Yep,
A long
great.
time. Like if
Yeah.
you can keep somebody's attention for 10 minutes, it's
Yep.
crazy. But if you poke around on the
Yeah.
site for 10 minutes, and that's what I did after I fucked up and made the post about getting in the den, right? I poked around and I looked. Look, there's Boarhead's making fun of me. Crossbow Rick's making fun of me. Finally Shedded's making fun of me. You guys, Jackass Lope's making fun of me. You know what I mean? Like everybody's making fun of me.
yeah,
Well,
right,
what's the common thing here? These
Yep.
guys have banded together to get
Yeah.
on me. Well,
I mean,
you take
come on,
an extra
for those
minute,
that,
you look around.
yeah,
These guys know each other.
for those that don't
They
have
know
the
each other.
context here.
It's not internet badasses. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like they're not internet badasses. You guys know each other.
Yeah.
When you're talking about something, you actually know what you're talking about with
Yeah.
him. Like there's a
Right.
personal connection there.
Right, right.
It's not just
Oh, yeah,
somebody
for sure.
talking
And,
smack.
yep. And for those that don't know, because we've referenced it a few times, right? Dave's foray to the forum there, he joined and he was genuinely curious about what was inside of a coyote's
If
den,
you believe
right?
that.
Yeah, and not wanting to disturb it too much, he was like, "Hey guys, I've got an idea. I'm thinking about crawling into a coyote den." And we're like, "Where did
Yeah.
this guy come from?"
I was a
Right,
whole
you know?
lot smaller back then.
Yeah, right.
And it's, and, you know, so obvious ragging began, right? Yeah, put a
Yeah.
GoPro on your head so we could see, right? You get mauled. So
Right, and I was genuinely worried about the percussion of a pistol underground.
is it gonna be
Like
too
that was
loud?
like my big concern until I met you
Right.
assholes. And then,
And so-
then I was
That got way worse.
Yeah, it got bad.
And we weren't gonna discourage you from it, but we're gonna make
No,
sure
no,
you had
no,
the-
no, no.
the
No,
proper
nobody
safety
definitely
equipment.
said don't do it.
Yeah, no, yeah, right. Just wear a camera, right? And probably a headlight and some goggles and a pistol and earmuffs and go in, buddy. You know, it's kind of like when I burned my hand last year messing with fireworks. I'm that guy, right? Yeah, I'm
Yep.
some pretty bad 3rd-degree burns all over my hand. It sucked to look at, but I wanted to post the thread about it from an educational perspective
Yeah.
of, hey, if you've ever burned yourself, here's what you're gonna look
Right.
forward to and what you got to do and how you got to keep it clean. And I think for now, somebody, if they ever have to do that, they're a little bit head start on knowledge
Yeah.
when they're looking at that. But going back to Dave's thing, not to segue too far off of it. Yeah, I was playing with fireworks, right? Quintessential stupidness, but I was at least smart enough to cut it open first before I lit the powder. But anyways, it got me. And my wife was like, yeah, my wife was like, she was like, I bet you're never going to do that again. And I just looked at her and said, that's not true. I'm just going to wear gloves and get a longer lighter.
Yeah. Right.
It's not that I'm never going to do it again. I'm going to do it better next
Better.
time.
Right. Yeah.
I learned something, and that's what life's about. So
That's funny. Well, so we're not gonna do anything that we've never done tonight. We're gonna drink a little too much. We're gonna
Okay.
we're gonna stay up, watch the fights in my house. Joe, it's so good to see you again, brother.
hey, buddy.
I'm glad that you moved to Mississippi because I know what that means to you as an
Yeah.
individual, but I miss you. Even though we weren't that far apart, but I'm glad that you make a backup when it comes to two events. I'm glad we can get Giles on here finally.
Quit saying it like that.
Giles, sorry. He's a
Giles.
Mexican. I'll be honest. I prepared pulled pork carnitas from my Mexican friend, so I'm about ready to show my
Dave's kinda
underneath my
weird.
skirt.
You meet him and you're like, well, I know he lived in Alaska, so maybe he's part Inuit.
No,
and you're
no.
like, no, he's
No,
not.
I'm
It's
not
the
gonna say it,
complexion.
Joe. I'm
you
not
know?
gonna say it.
he's not
It's
as
like-
Amish yet. He's
Yeah,
not as
it's
Amish
like-
as that beard would lead you to believe.
Yeah, it's like the Cajun guys over in Louisiana. They move
Yeah.
out of Louisiana, they go somewhere, nobody knows what they are, right? And they're like, I was watching a lady yesterday. I think it was on TikTok. She was talking about that. She's darker complected, and she was like, I go to places and black people talk to me like I'm black, and I'm looking at them, and I can't talk like that. And then I talk, and they were like, where's this person from? Or like Mexican people will say something to her in Spanish, and she's just looking at them. She's like, I don't speak Spanish. And they're like, you speak Spanish. Like they think she's messing with them, And so
No
Dave's
habla
kind of,
español.
Dave's kind of the same way.
International.
Yeah. Like, where's that guy from?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Chillicothe. No money for you.
Right.
I knew that would get him. All right, brother.
Yeah.
Thank ass town.
I appreciate you. Appreciate all the choosers that are going to listen into this.
I
and
gotta
all-
try to pick all these up.
Oh, look at
Because
him.
Dustin and I had a competition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good
I got-
podcast.
I've got that much Gatorade left.
All right.
So,
Sweet
Take
tea.
it easy, bud.
Sweet tea and Gatorade.
Get that gate.
Yep.
yeah.
Got the gate.
All right. All right, gentlemen. Y'all have a good one.